Blah.
Oh my God.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Hello, hello.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, all you people out there in the real world.
Everyone's good. At least I think.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. We'll give it a few minutes for everybody to join us tonight. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started this evening. Thank you all, everyone, for joining us this evening. Thank you, Gigi, for leading the conversation today. Thanks to all of our panelists for sharing your stories with us. A few housekeeping items before we get started. We will be using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so please feel free to submit your questions. We will try to work them into the conversation if possible. We are also recording, so we will be posting this on our website for future viewing. At this point, I want to hand it over to Jordan, who has a few words.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jordan Davis. I am a class of 2014 alum, and I also serve as the Vice President of the Gold Alumni Board. I am originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, but I found home in Brooklyn, New York. I tell people all the time, I say I'm from Brooklyn because I pay taxes here. But that's another story for another time. But I wanted to hop on and just say a little bit about Gold if you don't know. The Gold Alumni Board is a group of alumni leaders who promote and support the interest of DePauw University, and we serve as active liaisons for the Gold Alumni community to the university through communication, development, and engagement. And this year is special. But we're being really intentional about what diversity and inclusion looks like on a board level and in how we connect and advocate for the Gold Alumni experience. It's important that we build awareness and engage in critical discourse and action about what's happening around our world. And in part of building that awareness is partnering with regional chapters to engage in that work that supports our alumni and builds community. And tonight is an exciting way in which we build community and value diversity and experience and work post-DePauw. Tonight, we're highlighting some amazing creatives who I believe are going to offer incredible insight from their journey and experience as creatives. I hope this conversation tonight lights a fire for you and excites you to discover your talents and pursue your dreams throughout and post-DePauw. And if you're interested or thinking about moving to New York or what that may look like, feel free to connect with myself or Katie Schmelzer, who leads our New York City regional chapter, to provide another support system and a resource for you. But that is my spiel. Shout out to all of our panelists. I appreciate them all dearly. And I'm going to turn over to Professor Gigi, who will lead our conversation tonight.
Thank you, Jordan. Lovely introduction. You're a great representative for the Gold. So happy to have you doing this. Welcome, everybody. Glad you're here. I'm Gigi Genuine. I have been teaching at DePauw University for something like 25 years. I am an associate professor of communication and theater, and primarily I teach theater. I'm also a working artist. So I have been working more or less part-time at the university for 25 years, sometimes full-time, but mostly part-time, so that I could retain my professional work outside as an actor, director, teacher, and whatever else I get called upon to do. So I understand where these folks are coming from. I know what's going on with them, and I'm honored to be chosen to be here tonight as the moderator. So enough about me. Let's get on with the show. We are going to start with our introductions. You get to introduce yourself. We'll start first with Natalie. We're going to talk about who you are, when did you graduate, what you're doing now, where you are living right now. I mean, what's your deal? So,
Hi, Gigi. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here. My name is Natalie Yapin. I am of the class of 2016, where I graduated DePauw as a sociology major. I'm currently a full-time bilingual social worker, as well working at a school-based health clinic, as well as I am a best-selling author, which I'm still getting used to saying, and a painter. I currently reside in Queens, New York, where I'm also born and raised from.
thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Best-selling author. We need to know more about that. Gracie, you're up.
Hello, everyone. What's up? My name is Gracie. I am class of 2018, so still pretty recent, I think. I am a poet and a filmmaker primarily, and when I was at DePauw, I studied English writing, and I minored in film studies. I currently am an administrative assistant at the Posse Foundation, so I just do basic office work as my side hustle. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Gracie. There's a lot more to you than that. We know that, and it's coming up. All right, Skip, love to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay, sweet. My name is Erwin Brea. I graduated class of 2016. I was a studio art and literature double major, and I almost completed a minor in art history. I think I have to say that almost, because I was like one credit away. And I'm currently living in New York, and I am a full-time artist. But for the last 3 years, I was a professor at Florida State University, where I taught 2 major courses, an intro to digital media and an art history course called Art and Electronic Media.
Thank you. So I called you Skip because I knew you as Skip. Are you using Erwin?
I go by both. However, I feel like introducing myself for the day. I could go, Skip or Erwin, either or.
I just want to make sure I got it wrong. Thanks. All right, BJ, you're up.
Yes. Appreciate it, Gigi. My name's BJ Tariba. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I went to DePauw and graduated in 2015. I was actually a political science major. I did not know I had a creative bone in my body while I was at DePauw, so just a fun fact for you all. But I'm a content strategist. I handle like multimedia content creation, so photography, videography. I dabble in graphic design as well. I'm a writer, so I write scripts. A lot of my work right now is in the commercial space, like digital products and course creation, e-commerce, things of that nature. So that's what I do full time as well. I'm a digital strategist here in Indianapolis at a brand development and digital broadcasting service provider, Champ HQ. We're out in Zionsville. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you for that. That is intense, the amount of stuff that you're dabbling in. And we'll get more into that. And finally, we've got Jasmine. Last but not least, you're on.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Gigi. I'm Jasmine Gresham. I'm part of class 2011. However, I actually graduated from the Illinois Institute of Art. I went the complete artsy, fartsy route. I got my degree in fashion marketing and management. Then from there, I moved to New York. I've been in New York now 8 years, but I'm originally from Chicago. I've worked in fashion, mostly all houses, from Ralph Lauren, DVF to Todd Snyder. And from there, I did a more so project management, executive assisting, a lot of events, experientials, more of my background with also with mixed media and digital. Now I have just founded my own company. I'm a nail girl, so I started NailCon, so think like BeautyCon, but for nails. And we are a media and events lifestyle platform that's all about nails, nail care, and wellness. And we also touch on a lot of hot topics, especially more of like social construct topics. So I'm officially a CEO, so I run my own brand.
Wow. Well, we want to claim you, Jasmine. So
No, I mean, I am definitely a DPU alum, but yes, just to give full transparency.
I want to have you. All right, so we're going to get in some questions here before I start into this. Those of you who are following along with us, feel free to put any questions in the Q&A so that we can get back to your questions when we get finished with our official questions that we're going through right now. So let's start with this whole liberal arts question, right? So liberal arts colleges are kind of challenged at the moment, and they're trying to, keep their hand up and say we're relevant, we're necessary. And you all are products, and we're proud of you. And so the question is, how has your liberal arts education informed your current artistic and creative endeavors? And I think we're going to start with Natalie on that one.
Yes. So I've had this question given to me throughout the last few years. I went from being a DePauw alum to automatically going into social work and going to get my degree in social work as well. But something I gained from being a DePauw alum, from getting a liberal arts education, was the ability to dive into different subjects, to different classes, from writing to sociology to education to women's studies. It was never something that I had to restrict myself to. I knew that wholeheartedly. I went to an art school. It's something I was very passionate about, but in going to DePauw gave me the ability to be exposed to different things, to different conversations, to different professors, from studying abroad to winter term. I was able to kind of find the topics, the pieces of life that pertain to me that I was interested in. And so my art and my creative efforts and my endeavors are focused around that. So being a sociology major, a lot of what we go through in life is reflected within my art. I work in the mental health field, so a lot of my art and my writing revolve around that. So my book that came out this past summer revolves around a survivor having faced sexual trauma, and the ability to move through that comes from not only being able to write about it, but also create different pieces that reflect that trauma, but also that form of healing. So that journey is wholeheartedly from my experiences and being able to explore all options.
Thank you very much. I'm going to send this question as well to BJ, especially BJ, with how you introduced yourself, saying that, you didn't think you had a creative bone in your body, and then look what you're doing.
Most definitely. So I guess for me, I got three big things out of DePauw for the most part. Actually, I won't skip. I'll start with like reading, writing, and like critical thinking. I think in art in general, I think a lot of times people don't necessarily like you see the finished product. With creative work in general, you see the finished product, but you don't understand the context behind things. I think DePauw in general armed me with the ability just to critically think about the world around me, and the story that I was trying to tell through it. So I think that from a like just critical thinking, reading and writing perspective, I think that it really armed me with the ability to express myself, because a lot of what I do is based on writing. A lot of people look at, the end product in video and video production in general, but they don't realize how much script writing goes into that, how much storyboarding goes into that. And those are things that I kind of picked up as like a second nature, just because of how we write and the way we storytell at DePauw in terms of the work that we're doing. I was a poli-sci major. I took a lot of creative writing classes as well. And that's something that sticks out in the professional space as well for me, is just my ability to write and storytell. So that's number one. Number two, I guess to Natalie's point, just that interdisciplinary element that comes with being a liberal arts student. I think that was huge for me. I'm in a fairly technical space, like in my day job, and it feeds into the work that I do in my work. I'm actually building a publication myself personally right now. So that's like my main creative focus, but just being able to kind of go like turn that like right brain, left brain off and go from something technical to something more creative. I think that I learned how to do that at DePauw. I didn't know how to do that beforehand. And I noticed outside of school that only a few people can do it. And a lot of them are people that I know from DePauw. So that helps a lot as well. And I guess just the exposure to just different cultures, different identities, different kinds of people, and knowing how to handle yourself gracefully, like in those settings, and understand other people's perspectives, their context. I definitely think that helped me both in my just professional matriculation as well as my creative matriculation, just trying to become a better storyteller, understand people's different vantage points, using my emotional intelligence to put myself in other people's shoes. I definitely think that DePauw kind of armed me with those tools, and it's definitely helped me in my creative endeavors right now, in pretty much every respect.
Wow, that's very thorough and complete. I'm going to steal that and for some admission material.
I ain't charging.
You were actually with us for not just 4 years, but 5 years. So
Yeah,
your experience
I
at the arts institution is maybe a little bit different.
yeah. So I was lucky enough to win the Ephraimson Fellowship and do a 5th year at DePauw, where I got to teach alongside the Professor John Berry. And it was my second introduction to getting a classroom to myself and sort of learning how to write curriculums and build on like an idea that I have and bring it into the classroom, which led to sort of my career later on. But it's sort of like what BJ was saying, this idea of being interdisciplinary and having the ability to go through the motions and have different classes, from psychology to sociology to political science. All of those things sort of start to create a whirlwind and sort of meet at the end. For me, it was that literature major and that studio art major and that art history background all sort of became funneled into one thing, and that one thing is what sort of drives my creative process. So using what I learned throughout literature, reading all those books, learning my art history, and then implementing that into my social practice and my artistic practice, and how I go about carrying the bodies of work and how I go about speaking about them. And all of that, DePauw, especially for the art department, we have strong minds over there that help you sort of push those ideas out and be very thorough with sort of what you're trying to create and what you're trying to put out into the world. And I think that's what a liberal arts institution could be valued for, is the multiple avenues of where you can sort of land in one idea and how much you can grasp that while sticking to your guns and trying to project what you're thinking.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. All the things you get to bring in from multiple different places and direct them towards what you're working on. Lovely.
Absolutely.
So we're going to bring in a few more voices here. Another question that I have for you all. So there's a reason for the term struggling artist. It is historically hard to make a career at being an artist, especially now. It's kind of difficult. We have a diverse group of artists who are either working directly as writers, theater artists, visual artists, filmmakers, marketers, branders, or you're working in a job or a variety of jobs to advance your artistry. So what does your juggling or not act look like? And I think I'm going to take this to Gracie first, because Gracie, you actually sort of suggested it in your introduction when you mentioned your day job.
I did, didn't I? Yeah. All right. So yeah, my day job is an administrative assistant at the Posse Foundation. I do a lot of basically office stuff, archiving, scheduling, coordinating calendars, stuff like that, which is very particular and not at all within my skill set, but also helps me with the production aspect of filmmaking, which is a lot of coordination and a lot of collaboration. So I'm grateful for that. That leeway into the things that I do enjoy, and the ability to build upon that skill set through my day job. Given the way this year is going, I've taken it upon myself to just keep it at that. And not before COVID started, I was resident artist for Inspired Word NYC, which is a poetry series. So I was doing shows for them. I had been doing shows for them as a feature artist since 2017. And they invited me to be the 2020 resident artist, which would just mean a different set of responsibilities and a different amount of pay per show. COVID happened. We haven't really been doing virtual shows, so that kind of got put in the back burner. So I think for me as an artist right now, it's about just like holding space for myself and being graceful with the amount of work that I can take on for my mental health and just my general wellness in the middle of a pandemic. I'm grateful though that I have had other things that I've done in the past, like short stories and poetry and films that I made before COVID happened that are still able to bring in some type of income as I just chill, basically, for 2020. So yeah, I'm really grateful for my day job because it allows me to build on that skill set, so it doesn't feel like I'm falling behind in the things that I care about, but I'm still able to work on it. And I get to do video production stuff with Posse too. I was able to produce our conference video for the alumni conference. I'm currently in the middle of producing something for our fundraising event that's happening in October across the nation. So I still get to do a bit of the things that I enjoy, just not in the ways that I technically would outside of that space. So yeah.
Yeah, but that's why you guys are all good creatives, because you figure out a way to bring in your creative interests into the other work that you're doing.
Facts.
Jasmine, we want to hear from you with regard to this particular question. So I don't know if you're the CEO of your company, or do you have to do other things on the side, or is it producing the income you need, or what's going on with you there?
Well, I think so for me, just kind of being in the fashion world for, a long time. I actually started preparing and working on NailCon prior to everything that's happened with COVID, because I actually got furloughed. So in the beginning of COVID. So I was really kind of grateful that I basically saved up. I made sure to, take care of myself. That's the number one thing if you're going to live in New York. So I'm very grateful that I have a savings. And then with my platform being a digital platform, there's so many cost savings there, on top of I've learned how to pivot my business because we were doing events. And with events, of course, we were charging. We were initially starting out doing like nail bar pop-ups last year when I founded the business. And then we were also doing parties. And then from there, once COVID hit, I was like, okay, it's time to definitely pivot and go super digital and work on a more of the media side, where I was able to figure out, just putting on that marketing hat, how to basically come into other brands as a media sponsor and get paid for it. Because right now, just within, being part of the beauty industry, nails is the hot thing right now. And a lot of major platforms and brands, they're looking for new spaces to enter for, new engagement, new viewers. And I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with brands that pay. So, even if we come in doing influencer marketing, such as, working with different nail artists to work with different nail brands on campaigns and editorials and things like that. So I was very fortunate from all of my career professional training in the industry that I was really able to just put on my thinking cap and figure out another way to make a few coins. So.
Yeah. And you're speaking to that strength that all of our panelists have, the ability to be able to figure out how do I put my creative talents into play? Who do I reach out to? Where do I go? And I think that's a really important and necessary skill to have. Natalie, this question is for you as well. How do you make it? How do you put those two careers together? And you spoke to it a little bit in your introduction, but
like I said, I'm a full-time social worker, so I work with high school students in the Department of Education. Like I'm in a high school campus, so I work with 6 different schools, and part of my work is all around mental health. And so part of my writing, I knew wholeheartedly. I've always been a painter. I drew since I was a little girl. It's probably the first thing I ever did. I knew that was something that would always be a part of my life. And when I was at DePauw, I considered being an art major, being a sociology major. I went in wanting to be a poli-sci major. And post DePauw, I've used both, because being a social worker, I can also use art as a form of therapy, and it has been part of my experience doing so, but also on the side. So I've done workshops with groups of youth outside of work, just like wanting to engage with their friends. I've held different forms of event privately for people that are in my community that I have known. I use my writing now to bring in another side of income that I believe Gracie mentioned. Having released it during the summer, having quarantine happen, COVID happened, people were asking for books, right? And so I got to be be able to be one of those people through social media, through my website, through Amazon, to say, hey, read my book. And this is why you should read it. It's a form of way to talk about mental health as well as bring out my creative piece. It was a book that I had wanted to talk about or write and publish since I was at DePauw. I remember talking to my women's studies professor and working through what would that look like? How can I write it? Because it is a personal topic, it is also a topic that can be triggering. How do I take that into account? And being a mental health professional has given me that ability to take that into consideration, and having published, and I self-published as well. So the work, as folks have put it to me, is like, you do double the work because you're doing all the work on your own. You're putting all the money up front. And thankfully, I had started the process before COVID, and where I was part of a program that I had participated in called Momentum Education, which gave me the ability to start painting and selling my work. And so through that, I gained a couple $1,000s last year that came forward this year to put forth my book. So that is what I have used.
Wow. You guys are, you guys know how to put it all together. And it sounds like networking is really important as well. It's what I'm hearing from all of you as well. All right, we're going to go to another one. Another question. There's a lot of artists in the country making a lot of cool stuff. So how do you get recognized? How do you stand up from the others? What tools do you use to get people you want to know about your work, knowing about your work? What does it entail? And I'm going to jump to Skip with this one first. What do you have to do? Have them notice you, Skip.
So for recognition, and there could be a couple sides to the same coin, and how to get recognized and how to go about sort of creating a name for yourself, and not only just in the digital realm, but the physical realm, and also getting your names by word to mouth to other people, through other people. So the first thing I would say is applying for publications, whether they may be which I'm sure Gracie have done, is film festivals for filmographers, for photographers applying to digital shows. Another way would be applying for grants. So just how BJ said, writing is super key, and for DePauw, a lot of us come out as great writers, which is a big thing when it comes to writing grants and trying to gain money, not just through the government and loans, but for an idea and for a vision that you're sort of putting on paper and trying to, convince other people to pay you for. Being consistent and looking out for opportunities is not just like gaining an opportunity and then forgetting about it and trying to just live off of that one opportunity. And then the last thing would be making connections and networking within your field. Those would be like my top 4 points in trying to create and trying to make a name for yourself and become recognized. My personal examples would be, after leaving DePauw, after the Ephraimson Fellowship, I received an opportunity to have my first museum solo show, which is in one of the only museums in Northern Florida called the Gaston Museum of Arts. This was in 2017. And I believe that this solo show led me to looking for grants. I started looking for grants because I was a bit short on materials, and I ended up running into this like Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys grant called the Top 20 Artists Startup Grant, which is START, but like art and start. And they chose 20 people from around the globe, and they sponsored them with $75,000, so $7,500 to put on 2 solo shows in New York. I put one on in Manhattan, and I put one on in the Bronx. And then I believe that those shows then led to receiving a good chunk of change through Sean Diddy Combs' Black Art Summit in Atlanta. And I was the headliner artist for P. Diddy's Black Art Summit, and that was in 2019. So just everything just sort of led up to one another, and it's all about being consistent and trying to stay in your lane with the people that you know. And when you get out of your lane, make sure that you talk to the people who have already been there before you, and that are in your network.
advice. Thank you. BJ, how about you? How do you get the people that you want noticing you, knowing about you, paying
Right.
attention?
I think that it all starts with because we do a lot of canvassing and stuff like that. Like we do a lot of business model canvassing in general for a lot of our clients here at Champ HQ. Somebody asked what company I work with. It's Champ HQ. I guess you would mostly know him based on the CEO. His name's Gary Brackett. He's a former Colts player. So he's like a digital coach, and he's gotten into the space of coaching other people on their brand and stuff like that. But with that being said, I think the first thing that you have to do is know where you're trying to go, know who you are and who you're targeting. So once you understand who you are in terms of your skill set as an artist or creative, the niche that you're focused on, because once you do have that skill set, you still have to niche down and figure out what exactly are you delivering to your intended target audience. I think that the next step is building a portfolio. I think a lot of artists that I work with here, especially in Indianapolis and also in New York, too few of them have a really strong portfolio, whether it's a website, EPK, electronic press kit, a PDF of some sort, a pitch deck, or anything like that to send to prospective clients or people looking for commissions, proof of concept in general. I think that too few people lack that. And that's something that I would preach to everybody. If you're a creative of any sort, I think you need to get your portfolio started. Once you have A, niche down and figured out who you are and who you're targeting, and B, you have that portfolio, I think that the next step is just kind of getting out there and leveraging other people's audiences, right? So to Skip's point about publications, making sure that now that you have your portfolio, you're sending it out to the right individuals, and you're trying to get your work across different channels, whether it's social media or emailing people on a daily basis, if that's more your motif. It doesn't really matter what channel you're using, but you do have to leverage the channels once you have that portfolio. But again, none of this can happen if you don't A, know yourself, if you don't B, have a portfolio and something to show people, and then C, want to get out there and actually market. Because we can kind of get into the semantics of ads. Like, so I was a marketing director for a sports bar franchise. So I've run $300,000, $400,000 ad budgets and things like that. And it's all well and good to run ads and, you know what I mean, you leverage social media in those ways. But until you have those first three things down packed, again, knowing who you are, after that, understanding that you need a portfolio to send to people, and then 3, being willing to actually talk about it, even have an elevator pitch down and be willing to create content around the things that you're doing. All of the other stuff doesn't really matter. So I think that those would be the top 3 things that I would give to anybody right now. Know yourself, have a portfolio once you know yourself, and then tell as many people as possible. And I think that things will roll in your favor.
Great advice, BJ. And if any of you out there are looking for mentors, you might want to hit BJ up after we're done with this. Sounds like you'd be good at it. We're going to ask Natalie the same question. Natalie, you've already talked about getting your book into the hands of people, but how do you get people to pay attention to you as an artist?
To echo what both Skip and BJ have said, it was building my community in the area that I wanted to be in. Part of working on my book, I had to learn what it meant to be an author and what the community was like. And so, like I previously mentioned, Momentum Education was a program that does self-development work. And part of that was me getting to know a little bit more about myself, where I wanted to be. And from there was a lot of networking. It was getting to know editors, authors, people who have done this work before, and were also looking to were willing for me to shadow them, basically, ask them all the questions I had, especially since I was going through a self-published route. I joined a community that there was another author who now does a Write a Legacy workshop, and he's also a bestseller, and he was doing this workshop. It's a 6-week course, basically, that lets you know, like, what do you need to know to be the author you want to be, from knowing the editor you want, to knowing the photographer you want to do your cover, to doing the illustrator to do your book cover, and being able to build that following. That was the next step, and being able to have a website to have social media accounts focus on my art and my writing, and to the strategies that go behind that to really build my following, to let people know this is what I'm doing, even if it's not out yet, because my website was out way before my book was out. And so my website can get traction. From there, I got a message through Facebook because someone else shared my post from a librarian at Chicago Public Libraries wanting to know more information on my book, since it does regard mental health and intimate partner violence, and the area that they're a part of, having those rates be high, wanting to have a conversation with me to bring that to their library. And so it was continuing, because then COVID did happen, and building that connection was very important. Being able to say, hey, this is coming out, like my book just came out, I would love for you to read it. And in my posts, in my emails that I've sent out organizations, I've been blessed throughout my life to be part of many wonderful organizations that focus around youth development, focus on their success, and especially from New York City. And so I reached back out to them. They helped me, and now I want to give back. And that's how I've gotten people to listen and saying, I'm a mental health professional, I'm a writer, I'm a survivor, and this is what I'm doing. And this is why it's relevant to our communities. And that's literally what has allowed me to build my following. From there, I was asked into interviews. And from one of those interviews, more people found out about my book, that actually led me to becoming a best-selling author. From there, because I became #1 in the charts, my book kind of got like free promotion, especially through Amazon. And from there, more people came out. So it's just a lot of outreach, a lot of conversations, and letting people know who I am, and being relentless in a way, being very persistent, to letting them know, like, my work is important, this is why. I have, part of my book is the reason why I wrote my book. And it's like, I say, the reason why I wrote my book is to let survivors know, like, it's not their fault, even if it's happened to them multiple times. I've read countless of books, and it's never to shame them, but it always talks about, like, everyone gets to a point where they're healing or they're surviving. And I was like, I add to that conversation. I don't take away, I add to it, saying there's more that happens as you heal, as you survive, because those two are different phases for me. And to know that distinction, to know what else am I adding to that conversation that people want to be a part of.
Wow, great advice. Thank you. I hear, be honest, be relentless. But be honest. I'm hearing that from all you guys, and that's a really good bit of advice. These questions are going great. And I'm going to actually skip over the next question, but I'm going to take it to those panelists who are supposed to be addressing it, because we got a really kind of cool question that came in through the Q&A, and then we'll end up with the last question about New York City. But that question has to do with what role can art and design and creativity play in healing our country? So taking into consideration the political situation that we're in at the moment, what role? So I'm going to send this one first to, we're going to go first to Gracie. Can you take that? You didn't know you had that, but I think you can.
No, I think I can do it. Yeah. The first thing that came to mind was the first couple of weeks of this pandemic, and everyone was online on their Instagram stories, on their Facebooks, having painting sessions and showcasing their art, doing, like, getting into knitting and, like, all these things that I think people weren't doing when we were outside of this pandemic suddenly became the only thing you could do, right? So I think when I'm thinking about creativity and how it can heal us as people during this time, is that it just gives us something to do, right? And it gives us something to do that has nothing to do with what's going on in the world. It's like your own oasis or your own escape from everything that's happening. And I think in general, as a storyteller, and kind of referring, saying, when you write something and you share it with the world, it allows people to be seen. And being seen and being heard is healing within itself. When you know where to find your community, you know where to look for safety, and safety is healing, right? So So those are those are my main thoughts around what role creativity has in terms of healing as we move forward. I think it's going to be what we have, the most important thing we have, especially now that the winter is coming. Like, what are we going to be doing? People have been like going out more often, but I think it's going to play a big role while we're moving into these really cold months where we can only really be at home with our family and our supplies and whatever it is that we want to do to pass our time. So,
How about you, Jasmine? What role?
I think it plays a huge role. It's therapeutic, you know, and I think not only is it healing and therapeutic, but it also brings unity. And I think that's something that we've definitely seen a lot at this point, just, you know, between COVID and just our political, socio-economic climate right now is definitely, again, it's therapy, you know, and it lets people get it out in their own way as well. A lot of people are suffering right now, and so they found some really amazing alternatives versus going into medicine, but, you know, being creative, painting, getting out. Yeah, I think that's just really what it comes down to, being therapeutic.
Lovely answer. I love that. Yes. And I think, Skip, you might have an answer to that too, maybe. Yeah. How is
I think yeah, I might.
how is it helping us be a better world?
I agree with Gracie and Jasmine. This idea of using the arts for something as therapy, and not only as therapy, but as something of reflection. Personally, I don't know. Being as a creative, you sort of get dwindled and sort of engulfed in it, because you're constantly in this like motion of releasing a part of yourself into the world. And that can be hard within itself. So like, it's nice to take back and look at other creatives as a creative, and use those moments to heal and to reflect. For example, Gracie just put out a short film. You guys should go check it out. It's amazing. And her and I come from like a similar background, or the same background. So her going to DR and her sort of trying to encapsulate what those moments were for her, it was sort of where I saw a bit of myself, looking into another artist. And for me, I make paintings about people of color, and with everything that's going on in the climate, my paintings paint the people of color in predominantly positive situations, and which is the total opposite of what we're used to seeing, where we're painted very much so in a negative light. And I like to sort of showcase ourselves and within the positive light and the positive parts of history and our history.
Thank you for going to that one on the fly, but I thought that was an important question for us to take from those who are out there listening to us. And thanks for your thoughtful answers, you guys. So I'm going to skip to number 6, guys. Number 6, this has to do with New York. I mean, this is the New York group that's putting this on, so let's talk about New York. When I was young, this is about me personally, just for a second, just coming out of school. So I came out of Northwestern in theater, and I was convinced I had to go to New York City. And of course I did go to New York City for a little while. You know, Frank Sinatra sang that famous song about if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I was just listening to Hamilton again for the umpteenth time, you know, and like the greatest city in the world, right? So there's many, many more allusions to New York. So all of you, except for BJ, are currently in New York. And BJ, you're actually from Brooklyn. What does it mean to be a New York artist, and how easy and hard is it to make that actually a reality? So I'm going to go ahead and take this one over to BJ for just a minute, who's actually not in New York, to speak to, you know, he's in Indianapolis, but why there, and what does New York mean to you?
I guess for me, I look at Indy as more of a training ground. I still don't think I'm ready for New York, honestly. Keep it real with everybody. Coming out of school, I felt like I had been in New York. I had seen what it was like. I had gone back home a lot of times. And ultimately for me, I just felt like it was oversaturated. I felt like all right, like I'm trying to, because initially I wanted to get in like social media marketing, which kind of led me down my path. So I was like, all right, I'm trying to get a social media marketing job. I don't have any actual connections in New York. Why would I go back there even though I'm from there? It just didn't make sense to me for what I was doing at the time. I felt like a city that is a little bit smaller in Indianapolis had a little bit less barrier to entry for some of the stuff that I'm doing. And honestly, I honestly think that I proved myself right in that regard with some of the opportunities that I've afforded myself. And at the same time, I do feel like looking back on it, if I would have put in this much effort in New York that I did here, I probably would have got somewhere pretty decent as well. So I say all of that to say, especially for somebody who does a lot of like freelance photography and videography, I don't think that location really matters as much as I thought it did in the past. I think if I would have went back home and picked up a camera and kind of started doing what I was doing, I would be in a pretty similar and solid spot. So with that in mind, I think it's all contextual. So like Gigi's coming from like a professional discipline and like filmmaking and acting and that whole thing. That's a whole different ball game than what I personally was aspiring to do when I came out of school at the time. So I really do think it comes down to context and preference. For me, I was not going back to living on top of people. I like my space and I like being able to do this, and New York just wasn't that. So yeah, that's kind of how I thought about it. But yeah, I do think that like New York is a great place and it's the place for creative art and stuff like that. But I do think that it's growing everywhere.
Thank you so much. Jasmine, how about you? New York. What are the hard parts? What are the easy parts? How does it work for you?
Well, like I said, I've been here 8 years, and I was very clear even when I made the transition from DePauw to going to Art Institute Chicago that I knew I had to come here because I was going for fashion, and I knew I couldn't do that in Chicago. Once I left DePauw, I was already home in Chicago for about 2 years, and that's not even, but I knew I had to, go because I was also finishing up school. So it was like the perfect time where I went when I had to do my internship, and I was already working for a company who wanted to transfer me over. So I think it's really also about timing. I can say for myself, it was about timing and really just getting your ducks in a row because New York is not an easy place. And I came at a very, a much younger age where I was just like, I'm going to do it. And I tell people, if you're going to come, understand that you're going to come, you're going to work. I suggest coming if you really gonna be about the grind, then come at a younger age. It gets as you get older, it gets it's a different type of wear on you. But I would definitely say just like initially, it was definitely a lot of hard work. But New York is definitely a place that it will reward you. If you put in the work, you grind out, and you stick to what it is that you say that you want. It kind of piggybacking off of, I believe, either BJ or Skip said this, but really knowing who you are and knowing what it is that you want to do and focusing on that. New York will make you work for it, but it's like the greatest reward ever because once you do it, you feel like there's nothing you can't do. It's like, and also it just doesn't stop. It's like an adrenaline rush. You just kind of want to keep going and going. It's definitely the city that kind of keeps you alive. And I think I'm super grateful for that because also you have to be very strategic in this city, shall I say. It's not necessarily that easy, but when you understand the flows, the ebbs and flows of New York, and how to grind it out, those 8 years, it goes by fast and it helps you understand exactly what it is that you need to do. New York has definitely been a place of discipline for me. So it's been a wonderful experience. I would do the journey all over again. So.
Wow. I'm listening to all kinds of challenges and yet you're smiling through the whole thing. So that speaks a lot to your tenacity and to your DePauw roots. Gracie, take it away, girl. New York.
Ooh, New York. All right. Well, my relationship to New York is pretty interesting, I think, as an artist, because I spent 4 years at DePauw. So I was in Indiana, and then I just graduated, or it feels like I just graduated, and then I did right after college, I got a Fulbright to go do research on how Dominican folklore affects diasporic Dominican cinema. While I was there, I took some classes. I taught a screenwriting class on how to write basically an American style screenplay. And I had a group of 15 students. Out of those 15 students, 4 or 5 of them, all women, were like, yo, we're starting a production company. Let's do it, blah, blah, blah. So when I'm thinking about my filmmaking and its relation to New York, it's actually very much connected to the Dominican Republic. And New York comes into play when I think about the Dominican diaspora, because the reason I decided to go apply for my Fulbright was because I was doing press coverage for the Dominican Film Festival for this magazine. And I was like, yo, this is dope. I like telling stories. I bet I can get here in 10 years. I got there in 3, so my film's gonna be screening virtually this year at the Dominican Film Festival. So New York is, I don't know, I feel like New York, obviously I'm here, I'm present, I was born and raised here, but if anything, it was just a stepping stone back into the motherland. And a lot of the work that I do creatively has to do with what it means to be a Dominican person. So in a couple months, hopefully you all see on my social media, I just got published for an anthology under the Dominican Writers Association. It's the second one that I'm published under for them. Again, I'm doing this production work with this production company in DR. I'm hoping to go back there in a year or 2 just to focus on that and building that up with the team. So I guess that's my relationship to the hustle grind of New York, I guess. But I think as a storyteller, the role that New York plays for me is, how do I bring in my community as I know it into literature and into storytelling, specifically filmmaking, right? I think growing up, whenever I saw New York on screen, it was never the New York that I knew. It wasn't the New York I knew as a queer person, as a poor person, as a child of immigrants. So I think for me, the role New York plays is one, it's the setting and the background for many, if not all of my stories and my poetry and my writing in general. But it is intentionally so that it reflects the communities that I come from. Because again, I think I said earlier that when you can see yourself, you can find safety in community, and that itself is healing. So yeah, I think when I think about myself as an artist and my role to New York, it's to make sure that folks are seeing the New York that I know, that isn't just Central Park and Brooklyn Bridge and all of these like symbols that everyone has been consuming for the past 100 years of literature, right? How do I show the New York that sounds like my neighborhood? So that's my relationship to New York as a native, I guess.
Wow. All right. This is humbling for me. I am awed by all of you, impressed by all of you. I want to take just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of credit if I can, just saying, I had some of you in class. I worked with some of you on different projects. I know the teachers you had. I just, you guys are really fabulous representatives for what we do here, what we want to put out into the world. And I really appreciate you guys for doing what you're doing. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think we're kind of close to the, I think we're kind of close to the end of this. I think Zaid is going to jump back on. Is there any last words that any of you guys have to say? Oh, wait, hold on. So let me just say this to those folks who are watching our webinar here. There's some Instagram information, website information that's coming at me here in the chat. I know y'all can't see that. I don't know how to share it with the folks who are watching. Anybody want to tell me how to get it out to them? I'll definitely do that.
It should be available in the chat for panelists, for all of us. If it's set to all panelists and attendees, it'll be available.
Okay, all right. So we'll get it out to the folks who have attended. So thank you very much. I see in the Q&A a big old thank you from a friend. So I don't see any more questions. I think we'll skip back to you then, Zaida. Do you have some last words for us, or to Kate?
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you guys.
Thank you, all of you, for serving and sharing your stories today. Thank you to Gigi for moderating this great panel. Thank you to the audience for tuning in. And a special shout out to Katie Schmelzer from our New York Regional Association and Jordan Davis, Gold Alumni Board Vice President, for all their work in putting this together. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody, and stay safe. Good night.
Good night.
Super fun. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.